Hi all, welcome back. My name is Bhushan Kumar and today's topic is inversion of control and dependency injection in Spring. Okay, so before we start, let us do a quick recap. Okay, so in the previous tutorial, we had seen a dependency injection in Java. We had seen how we removed the type coupling of two classes, right, and made the classes loosely coupled. So let us go through this circle class and understand what we have done in the previous one. So we try to not instantiate the point class in the circle class. So this way we are not making two classes tightly coupled, right? And then we just created the setter and getter here. The classes were instantiated in drawing class, right? So as you can see, the classes were instantiated in the drawing class, both triangle and then center point class, and their values are getting the values of coordinates of point class or the values of the variables of the point class are being set from this drawing class using the setter method. That is the reason we had created the setter method here, right? And then you can see this one, the value, the dependency is being injected using the setter method. Okay, so this was the concept of dependency injection in Java. So one point to be noted here is it is the developer's responsibility. It is our responsibility to instantiate the classes, right, or create the objects of the classes and inject the dependency, right? So let's suppose in future we have to change the values of the x and y coordinates of the center point. The developer would need to replace the values in the class, like the value which you see 11 and 21 need to replace, developer needs to replace these values and then recompile the code and deploy to the production, right? So it is developer who is taking care of creating the objects and injecting the dependency, right? Spring plays a great role here. Okay, Spring says that instead you managing the life cycle of the classes. So life cycle of the classes means creating the class, creating the object and destroying the object. Spring says that leave this work to me. I will do, you know, creating the objects and injecting the dependency. You just give me the configuration. You just give me a configuration file and I would take care of uh, you know creating the objects and setting the dependency. And whenever you need to change the values of x and y coordinates or variables of the point class, you just update the configuration file and restart the application. You don't need to deploy the code. You don't need to recompile and deploy the code. Okay, so we will see this in action. Okay, so let's start coding how dependency injection is being done by the Spring and then life cycle is managed by the Spring. So we have a drawing class. We will create a new class called drawing with Spring and we'll try to understand this. Okay, so I have created a new class drawing with Spring. Let's create the main class. Sorry, main method. Okay, so Spring says that you just ask me. I have a factory, bean factory. Okay, so bean is nothing but the object. Object managed by the Spring. Okay, so when we create the object, we call it as simply object, right? When Spring manages the life cycle of the objects, Spring call it as bean. Okay, so Spring says that I have a bean factory. You ask whatever bean or whatever object you need from me. So there is a bean factory interface. Probably this is an interface, and it has an implementation called XML bean factory. Okay, so we are going to pass the XML file for the configuration. So I have already created at the template of this configuration file spring.xml, and we would define the beans here. Okay, so let's pass the file name here as an input to the XML bean factory class. So there is a class called file system resource, which will read the configuration of this spring.xml. Okay, so let's pass the relative path of this one, source main resources, and then spring.xml. All right, so let's, okay, so forget this one. Fine. Okay, so we have a bean factory ready. Now let's ask the bean factory to give us this circle bean. Okay, so if you can see in the earlier drawing class, we had created this circle one, right? Circle one object by ourselves. Now we would ask Spring to give this circle bean after reading the configuration from this spring.xml. Okay, so would say I need okay, so let's code here. So we want this circle one bean, right? Let's go here. We'll go to this spring.xml file and we create the configuration for this bean. So we need this circle one bean, right? And the class of this circle is this one, right? Okay, so if you go to the circle one class, we have a center point, right? So let's do center. Let's give this property name as center, and then it would refer to another bean. We would call it as center point. Okay, so what we have done till now, if you can see this example, okay, so this is asking us to typecast it. All right, so we are asking B to give us the object of circle one, right? And then definition of the circle one is passed in this configuration. So circle one object is of this class, right? Com stepper circle one, and then it has a property point, right? So we have defined this point here. Now this point is referring to another bean. So let's create another bean. Let's copy the whole thing, and this center point, and this center point is of type point, right? And it a point. Let's go to the point class. Point has two properties, x and y. So let's define the values of this x and y. Let's say I'm giving the value as 56. So this is the first property, and the second property is y. So y, let's give it as 36, right? Okay. So before running this, let's try to understand what we have done. Okay. So what we have done, instead we creating the objects or object of this circle and injecting the dependency of this point into circle. What we have asked from the Spring is, Spring has a bean factory. Bean factory is instantiated like this, right? And then we are asking bean factory to give us a bean of which type? Circle one. Okay, so bean is nothing but an object managed by the Spring, right? So Spring is a container and it manages all the objects, and those objects are called beans, right? So we will go to this spring.xml file, and then we are defining this bean, the circle one, and this circle one is of type const stapper.circle one class, and then it has a property, circle one has a property point, right? So this property is uh, the variable name is center, right? So center, and then it is referring to another bean. So point is also an object, right? So it's just another bean. So it is referring to another bean. So bean name is center point. It is of type point, and the point has two variables, x and y. So we are setting the values of x and y, right? So we are good. Let's run it. Okay, so it has loaded the XML bean definition and did not print anything. So let's try to understand why it did not print anything. Let's go to the circle one class, and okay, circle one seems to be good. Let's go to the drawing.application class. Okay, so we just got the object, right? We did not call the draw method, right? So let's call this draw method and run again. Alright, so we see whatever value we had set for x and y coordinates are getting printed here, right? So we're good. Okay, so what let's conclude this tutorial. So what we have learned in this tutorial is we are asking Spring to manage the life cycle of beans and inject the dependencies. We are not, the developers are not injecting the dependencies. And in future, suppose I want to change this value 56 and 36, we can just update this configuration file and restart the application. Spring will create the object. Okay, so Spring is a container. Okay, and then the objects managed by Spring are called beans, right? So I will stop here, and in the next tutorial we will try to inject the dependency of points into triangle class and complete this example. Thank you for watching.